Hi Greedy 3Ds, welcome to today's episode. Now I get really excited when Patreons, brand new ones, approach me and ask me to have a look at some of their work and do a little bit of a paint job on a few pieces of theirs and see what we think. Well, today's no different. I've been approached by a Patreon called SuperShark. These are a relatively new Patreon to hit the scene, and they have got some amazing models that they've made. They seem to be focusing on DC at the moment. Whether that will span across to different multiverses and universes and genres will be yet to be seen. But at the moment, they're certainly putting some DC stuff out, and it's looking absolutely incredible. Now, they have sent me this model, this zombie Wonder Woman model. Now, you know I love my zombies, and I love the way that zombies are being interacted in with Marvel and DC and all the rest of it. Absolutely love it. So when I saw this model, I was really excited to have a little bit of a blast to paint this up. So paint it up I did, and I will talk you through the painting process of old Wonder Woman here. I do urge you to check out SuperShark Patreon. I'll put a link in the description where you can see more information, but go and have a look at some of the stuff they do, and some of the stuff they've got planned looks really, really exciting. Stay tuned. So these wonderful models have been printed on my Uniformation GK2 using some Jam J standard Pro resin. 99.9% of the model was printed on that, except the bases that were printed on the K1, again using some Jam J high speed PLA. Now, I did run out of resin for one part, so I thought let's try it in PLA and see what it looks like. And this is the lower part of the Wonder Woman model, and my God, has the K1 produced an amazing result. Now, for those of you that think that 3D printing, once it comes off the printer, is done, here's a bit of news for you. Now the sanding and the fitting and the messing with begins, to get rid of any divots, to get rid of any lines and marks, and to make sure that where you've joined two pieces, like here, where the arm has joined the body, you fill. Now I'm using a precision bottle here, Mr. Precision, and a UV light with a little bit of that Jam J resin to just fill that gap so you don't see any join mark. And of course, when you've done that, guess what? Yes, more sanding ensues. Make sure you sand everything and anything, and all the bits and pieces that you don't sand will show up in your end result, especially if there's divots. Once you've done that, we're going to take a really thick, firm brush and get the dust off. It's important to get the dust off, because if you don't, you will show up in the priming stage and the painting stage. And I'm using here some Citadel primers to prime the model. And there we go. Everything has had a blast, either in black or white, depending on what we use. The only thing I've done that I didn't catch on camera was I gave the skin some bleached bone. Now, she is a zombie. I don't want her to look pink, and what I'm going to do now is take some of this crystal clear and give it a blast all over to protect my work for the next stage, which is this. Me and masking tape called Real Friendly. Quite a little bit of it went on her to protect those skin tones, so I can get the red colour on and I can get the blue colour on. So I've masked off the areas I want to protect when I do the next stage, which will be over to the airbrush to give it a bit of a blast. Now, the other thing that I'm going to do here to protect the legs is to use a little bit of masking fluid from Vallejo. Now, I've done a separate video on how to use this stuff, which I will link at the end of the video. Please do not be afraid of masking fluid. It is really easy to use. It's simple terms. You paint it on your model where you don't want the other colour to go, and you can paint this onto bare, you can paint this onto other pre-existing paint, and it will protect it with the next layer, which in this case is Omega Blue from the Army Painter. And this is the blue colour that I'm going to give Wonder Woman's skirt through my airbrush all the way across until she's covered. Then I'm going to make it look a little bit more pajazzy. Is that even a word? A little bit more shiny, using some Elvin armour, again from Army Painter, just to give it a metallic-y kind of look. Once I have done that, I'm going on to Carmine Red, which is my favourite ever red colour in the world, and I'm going to paint those legs right the way across. Now, that masking fluid will protect the skin tones underneath, and then once I've given it a coat of that, some gemstone on the top to give it another one of those pajazzazazas, whatever I said last night. And here it is going on. I'm not going to cover the whole thing, I just want to give it a real gentle splattering. Now, while that's drying, some metallic from Rust-Oleum here to give the base a bit of a blast all the way across. I just want that to be simple and plain because it's the bottom part of the base and the majority of the detail will be the upper part. Now back to that masking fluid. It's been about 25 minutes and I'm literally just pulling it off like a bit of sunburn. Oh, it's quite relaxing, it really is. You just rub it with your fingers and it comes off. Any little bits that you can't get out, use a toothpick, nothing metal, just some little bit of a toothpick or something made of wood or plastic just to scrape it off. Give it a rub with your fingers. You're going to have to just go around the edges a little bit to tidy it up and get any of those stray bits off. But once you've done that, it works a treat. Now the masking tape is going to be coming off too to reveal the protected legs below, and her skin tones and her base layers are all on. Oh, it took a while to get this masking tape off. There was a few delicate pieces I had to be careful of. Now for some bright gold, which is the colour I'm going to be using for her uniform and the little edging around her skirt, this is ideal. It's going to need a couple of layers because I've gone straight over the blue. You can cheat and paint things white first if you really want to, but I've just gone straight over the original colours. I tried to protect the sort of pale colours with the masking tape to make this bit a little bit easier, but I did have to give it about 3 different layers to get the gold on, and it took a fair bit of time to get that on, but it's really important you take your time with it. Now for the base, obviously we've started off with some black primer. I'm just putting a little bit of masking tape on in some certain sections across that broken bit. I want to give it a kind of white line in the road look. So a little bit of just pure white on a big brush, and I'm just going to gently, almost dry brush it across there until the whole thing is covered and it looks like that white of the road, that road marking, just to make it look a little bit more interesting. Off with the tape, and the effect that I was after is complete, and I'm just really pleased with that. Masking tape has lots of uses, and this is another one. Protect your road for road markings. Beautiful. Now for some stone golem paint on a dry brush, I'm just going to go around the edges of that tarmac just to make it look a little bit more used, worn and battered, and make it look like it's had a few cars going up and down it. It's obviously broken, it's obviously had a bit of a rough time, so it's just a big makeup brush, some dry brush, and the dry brushing effect is just beautiful. You know how much I love my dry brushing. Just to add another effect, I'm going to use some Vallejo thick mud, and I'm going to put this in the centre part of the road bit there, just to make that other bit there look like it's muddy. Now, you know, you can leave that, you can paint it a different colour, you can do what you want. The joy with making your own models is you can do whatever you want to do. So for me, it is popping on a little bit of mud, and I really recommend this Vallejo mud. It dries really quickly and it looks awesome once it's done. Just for a few added little bits as well, I've used some tufts of grass just poking up through the broken bits. Again, just to give something a little bit more pleasant to the eye. And yes, you can see a little bit of a splattering of blood on there too. The base, I didn't want to do too much with the bottom part of the base, so I just painted the Wonder Woman emblem with a bit of red and a little bit of gold, and I called that done. And then while I had the gold out, I went back to old Wundy and I painted her over again, giving it a few layers. Now, as I say, gold is a little bit of a nightmare to paint on. If you want to paint white underneath it first, it will make your life a little easier. If you don't, expect to do a fair few layers, but it went on and went on well. Now, panel line accent colour, this is some black ink, and I've used this ink in lots and lots of my models. If you haven't got any of this stuff, get hold of some. It is amazing stuff. And all I'm using it for here is to try to extenuate some of the areas of her clothing that would look a little bit dark and foreshadowed, and it will just literally fall down usually where you want it to go. Now, sometimes on a model like this where it's quite a thick, rough model, it doesn't track, but if you're using it on a very smooth model, it will track really well. But pop it on, use a bit of kitchen roll to get any excess off, and just leave that shadowing in the background, and that's all you need to do. This stuff's a little bit difficult to get hold of in the UK. I had to get it from eBay. I couldn't find any on the wonderful mighty Amazon, so have a scour across the old bay, so you get yourself some. Now, I've used some skeleton bone, which is probably my favourite colour in the world, and all I've done is on a dry brush, a very light coat of it, just across her uniform there, just to make it look a little bit more shiny, a little bit more worn in certain places where you would expect it to be worn, where she sits on her bottom. And it's done. It's made it look a little bit aged. Now, Leather Brown, me and Leather Brown became friends on this wonderful model. There's quite a lot of leather strap work, so a narrow brush, some music on in the background, not too much coffee beforehand, and I painted the brown. And all I did to finish that leather effect was, once it had dried, I gave it a dry brush across with some skeleton bone, and followed by a final layer of some wash, which was soft tone, and the leather was all done. and dusted. And I used again some of this panel line on the red of her jacket there, of her armour, and I just popped that in to give it a few fine details through the gaps in the centre of it. Ran a bit better on the top than it did on the bottom, and here you can see me using a different kind of shade. This is null oil, and again a marvellous oil from Citadel, and this I'm using to just dirty up some of the outer edges of the armour to give it a bit of a clouded look. It's just another effect on the legs. The legs I did exactly the same way as I did the rest of her, and for the skin, which you saw me there use on the legs, I'm using some of this necrotic flesh. Now I've watered this down to a wash to start with, and I'm going to wash it right the way across the skin tones, and then once that has dried, I've taken exactly the same colour. I've used a thicker version of it so it's a little bit darker, and I've just used it into the recesses of her muscles and at the top of her legs and in other parts of her body, just to make that green necrotic colour look a little bit darker. Once I've done that, I've took a toothpick with some leather brown on, I've just speckled across her legs in certain areas, took that initial brush that I used for the green, for the necrotic flesh, and I just splodged it out to make it look like some even darker areas on her skin. I tried to catch the brown dots before they dried. I didn't want them to look like she just got measles or anything like that, but I just wanted the skin to look dirty, I wanted it to look blemished, and I wanted it to look like she's got some kind of disease which turns her into a brain-eating zombie monster, which, hey ho, I think I've done. What I did at the end as well, I just popped a couple of little dots on and left them as little dots. Again, she has got the lurgy, she has got the zombie disease. Next, I painted a little bit of blood, and for this I used the blood for the blood god, which is probably my favourite blood effect paint. She's got a bit where her arm is ripped off. You designers are awesome, with a bone sticking out. So the bone, I just popped a bit of skeleton bone raw on it, and for the red bits I painted a little bit of this blood right the way across where it has been ripped off. I did put some Vallejo clear gloss on the top of this at the end to make it look juicy, and I think juicy it did look. There's some areas of her armour that are broken, so I painted the skin tones in that, and I used a toothpick with a little bit of this blood on just to pop some dots of blood and some runs down as well across her armour. Once that was all done and on, I took some gold to paint the No Porcupines lasso of truth across her arm that has been severed, taking care to use a narrow brush to do that. And for the shield, it's had a base layer of black, and all I'm doing is taking some of that gold on a dry brush. Now, this shield was really easy to do, but I think the end effect looked fantastic. I just dry brushed across the shield all the way around the outer part, and I left the inner part gold free, and I got that kind of aged look on the shield that I was after. And then I took some silver and I did exactly the same on the very outer edge and then across the centre, just to make that look a little bit more silverified. And once I'd done it on the middle there, I did a bit more silver look on the back, and that was the shield done. And I have to say, you don't really need to make hard work of things like shields. If you could paint it with a fine brush and go over every detail if you want, but this looks absolutely fine and perfect and wonderful. Of course, there's a broken part of that shield, Captain America style, so I'm going to use some blood from the blood god to give her an edge of goriness on there. And then I'm going to take a hard bristled toothbrush with some of that blood on, and I'm going to just splatter it across the shield to make it look like blood splatter effects. Easy and simple, but oh so effective. And that is the shield done and dusted, and I'm really chuffed how that shield has come out. The two grooves there, I just gave them a little bit of a line with some panel liner just to make them look dark. Now for the face, exactly the same process. It's had the pale bleached bone face. I'm using some black to do the eyes. I'll put some white in the centre of the eyes. I'm not going to give her some irises and pupils or anything like that. I'm going to leave the eyes white, but what I did do for the irises, I just used a very lighter white to put a white circle in the middle of the white, if that makes sense. I won't show you the whole process, it's fairly straightforward. Just some paint for the lips as well, a little bit of white for the teeth, some blood running down, and the skin zombie tones exactly the same. Under her eyes, I've just used a little bit of null oil just to give her a dark complexion. The hair was painted with matte black. I did think of dry brushing the hair, make it a bit lighter, but you know, you could use blue, you could use a bit of silver, you could use anything really, but I just decided to leave it black. I think it extenuates the face really well. And here she is. I hope you've enjoyed this SuperShark zombie make. Hope you enjoyed that video in the making of the zombie Wonder Woman. There'll be more zombie videos, I have no doubt, to come forward, because they're certainly releasing more zombies from SuperShark, and they're definitely doing some DC ones. Superman, Batman, maybe should have said that, I'm not sure, but they're going to be doing it for definite. Don't say anyone that I've told you. If you want to support the channel, it really, really would be appreciated. We're not a massive, huge channel. The first thing I'd love you to do is subscribe, please. The subscriber count is so, so important for a little channel like this. And if you like what you see, just tap that button. It's cheap, it's free, it's easy. Boink, you've done it. And another subscriber lands on the folds, and it really helps the Greedy 3D algorithm to get more videos of this out to other people who like and enjoy the things that we do. If you want to join our Patreon, you've got a couple of options there. It's free to join if you want it to be free. If you want to make a little contribution which will help the channel, you can do that from as little as £1, and that really is appreciated to the guys that are already doing it. As you can see, we've got quite a few Patreons on board, and thank you guys, thank you so, so much for your support. If you want to join the Patreon, all the details will be found down below in the description. Of course, if you want to buy anything from the description, you'll see in there some Amazon affiliate links, and you can buy those, and a little bit will kick back to the channel. It doesn't cost you a penny more, guys, I promise you that, but a little bit of that kicks back to the channel just because it's an Amazon affiliate link. So I hope you've enjoyed this Wonder Woman zombie. There'll be plenty more zombie action to come moving forward. We've got reviews planned, we've got all sorts of things, exciting things moving forward into 2024. Thank you for watching. Please like the video, please share it with your friends, and I'll see you real soon next time on Greedy 3D.